Ching Mei, to prank me, secretly used my finished summer homework as a placemat. When I found my homework, it had a big hole in it, and was covered in all stains. I was so angry that I gave him the cold shoulder for the entire summer break, until the first day I transferred to his school. I heard some boys spreading rumors that Ching Mei liked him. The classmates on the side echoed, Yeah. Sujin-hen is probably afraid of affecting your studies right now. He'll definitely confess to you after graduation, when you go to college. Hearing this, I chuckled. How delusional. Both of them stopped in their tracks, and turned their heads to glare at me fiercely. Song Jingnian frowned. What are you laughing at? I looked at them and said flatly, I'm laughing at your infatuation. At your poor taste, at your daydreaming. Seeing this, Song Jingnian was about to get angry, but then he caught sight of Su Kingin walking over from behind. He deliberately put on a gentle smile. Classmate, if you have a problem with us, just come at me. There's no need to badmouth Kingin. He's handsome and a good student. We didn't say anything wrong, did we? I said with disdain. Is Su Kingin the school beauty? Did you crown him, or did he crown himself? Besides, what's the use of being handsome? Even if he chased after me, I wouldn't want him. If you like him, go after him. Song Jingnian turned to Su Kingin. Kingin, you heard everything. I'm sorry. Don't take it to heart. He said all that just to spite us. Song Jingnian had timed it so that Su Kingin would walk over, and deliberately provoked me into saying what I just said. And Su Kingin was standing right behind me, hearing the whole conversation clearly. You've offended Su Daozihua on the first day of school. Let's see if you have a good time in the future. Song Jingnian smirked inwardly, but the result surprised him. Su Kingin didn't say anything. He glanced at me and went straight into the classroom. I looked at Song Jingnian as if he were an idiot. He followed Su Kingin into the classroom. Song Jingnian gritted his teeth in anger. He didn't expect that guy to be in class 3 too. What? It's over already. The onlookers expressed their dissatisfaction. This drama isn't satisfying enough. They dispersed, feeling disappointed. As soon as Su Kingin entered the classroom, his deskmate and best friend, Su Kik, waved to him. Kingin, why are you so late? Did you finish your summer homework? Let me copy it. Ever since Su Kingin entered the classroom, the room had become much quieter. The girls lowered their voices. Su Kingin hated knows the most. The boys stared at the beautiful bow, with infatuated looks on their faces. I knocked on Su Kingin's desk and said, impatiently, Hey. Can you move your desk forward a bit? There's not enough space for me to sit. My voice wasn't loud, but the classroom was too quiet. For a moment, everyone's attention was drawn to me. Who is this guy? How dare he talk to Su Kingin like that? And he even knocked on his desk. Su Kingin looked up. I stared down at him. He met my gaze sharply. We held each other's gaze for several dozen seconds. Everyone was guessing how this bow would be dealt with. Su Kingin hated talking to bows, not to mention that this bow's tone was hostile. But to everyone's surprise, Su Kingin stood up and moved his desk forward a long way. Then I sat down calmly. A big drama ended before it even began. Everyone looked on in astonishment. Is Su Daozihua mute today? He didn't even get angry. Why is he so obedient to this new beau? Such interesting news naturally had to be shared with the whole school. Soon, a hot post appeared on the school's online forum. Breaking news. A handsome guy just transferred to class 3 grade 12. And he immediately challenged the school beauty. Back in the classroom, I had just settled into my seat when my new deskmate, Guo Yao, leaned in and whispered, I'm sorry, John Haoken. I didn't have time to tell you. The only empty seat in the whole class was next to me. Su Kingin said the front space was too small for his 2-meter-long legs. So he always pushed his desk back. That's why there was never anyone sitting next to me. What Guo Yao said was true, but not the whole truth. Su Kingin's legs were indeed very long. He didn't like being crowded. But there was another, more important reason. He didn't like the people sitting in front of him. Because some people always found excuses to peek at him. It annoyed him. I slowly took out a practice book from my bag and said to Guo Yao indifferently, It's okay, Guo Yao, he won't say anything. What did you say? Guo Yao suspected he had misheard. What? Guo Yao wondered if he had heard wrong. Why did it seem like Zhang Haoken was very familiar with Su Kingin? I shook my head. Nothing. Inwardly, I thought, okay, Su Kingin. I didn't expect you to be so impressive at school, but I'm sorry. Now that I'm here, you can't be the boss anymore. You've never beaten me since we were kids. Do you want to rebel? I thought to myself. Amidst the chattering, our homeroom teacher, Old John, walked onto the podium. Shh, Old John is here. Stop talking. the classroom quickly quieted down. Old John hung a sign next to the blackboard. It read, 283 days until the college entrance exam. He cleared his throat and looked around until he finally found a new face who had just transferred today. He pointed at me. That new student, please stand up and introduce yourself. I had been in the classroom for less than an hour, but I had already attracted enough attention. Everyone was curious about me. I stood up abruptly, but my legs couldn't fully straighten. The space between the desk and chair was still a bit small. Hello everyone. My name is John Heoken. I transferred from experimental high school. I hope to make progress together with everyone in the days to come. Observant students noticed that while I was speaking, Sukingen quietly moved his chair forward a bit more. By the time I finished, I could stand up straight with some room to spare. Good. Very good. John Heoken's grades are excellent. You students should help each other in the future. Old John smiled and gestured for me to sit down. I said with some difficulty, teacher ... Is there anything else you want to say? I clutched my stomach. I want to go to the bathroom. Some of the more easily amused students started laughing. Old John waved his hand. Go ahead. When I returned to the classroom, Old John had already started his lecture. A class passed. Until the end of class, I was listlessly clutching my stomach. John Heoken, are you okay? Do you want me to accompany you to the infirmary? Guoya touched my back with concern. I forced a smile. I'm fine. I just ate something bad last night. Sukingen, who had just stood up from his seat, glanced over here and walked out of the classroom silently with his water cup. He came back a moment later with a box of medicine and a cup of hot water. Then, under the watchful eyes of the whole class, he placed both items on my desk. Sukik rubbed her eyes. No way, I'm not seeing things, am I? Kingen, you're letting him use your own cup, and you bought him medicine. Sukik reached out and touched Sukingen's forehead. She tilted her head, in confusion. You don't have a fever. Sukingen, you're acting strange. Something's up with you. Sukingen swatted Sukek-san away. Stop it. The classroom erupted in chatter again. Doesn't Sukingen have OCD? Isn't men and women shouldn't touch his motto? Sudazhua is actually taking care of someone. Who is this new student? Wait. Not only is Sudazhua not angry, he's actually concerned about him. What's so strange about that? Sukingen has always been kind. What's wrong with caring about a new classmate? Song Jingnian said this, but his heart was already sour. He had a crush on Sukingen for so many years, and after all these years of effort, the iceberg that he couldn't melt had actually thawed. Jealousy burned fiercely within him. The two people involved didn't seem to care about the surrounding noise at all. Sukingen lay on his desk and fell asleep. I unscrewed the cap and blew on the water for a while, cooling it down, then gulped it down. I wasn't particularly grateful to Sukingen at this moment. After all, he was the culprit who caused my stomachache. He was the one who insisted on adding 3 seasoning packets to the turkey noodles, and lied to me, saying he only added half a packet. My tongue was numb from the spice, and there was no water at home, so I could only drink ice-cold soda to relieve the burning. Sukingen ate the noodles too. But he was perfectly fine now. I admired him for that. Of course, that wasn't the main reason why we had been giving each other the cold shoulder since last night. The real reason was that while we were eating, Sukingen casually used my summer homework as a placemat, and swore it wouldn't get damaged. But after just one meal, my homework was tattered and covered in all stains. I was angry and scolded Sukingen for being unreliable. Sukingen thought I was making a big fuss. It doesn't matter if transfer students don't hand in their homework. The argument escalated until we were both genuinely angry. The fight ended when Sukingen offered his own summer homework, and we began a long period of cold shouldering. That's why we didn't come to school together today. That's also why we hadn't spoken all morning, but cold shoulder or not, he still had to show some concern, no matter how badly we fought. Sukingen was often the first to give in. Not to mention whether he could stand me ignoring him. His mother's nagging alone could drive him crazy. You're a girl. Girls should be more reserved. How can you be so careless? Sukingen could recite these words backward. Guoya was almost shocked by what he had just witnessed. He couldn't help but ask me, John Heoken, do you know Sukingen? What's your relationship? I don't know him. The thought that Sukingen hadn't apologized to me yet made me furious. I thought, all those years of ice cream were wasted. I don't know him. No way. Based on my years of understanding Sukingen, if you two don't know each other, I'll wash my hair upside down. Sukik joined the conversation. He and Sukingen were classmates for 3 years in middle school, and deskmates for 2 years in high school. I've never seen Su Kingin so enthusiastic towards anyone. Are you done? Su Kingin hadn't been asleep. He turned around and kicked my desk a few times. Jong Haeoken, are you embarrassed to admit you know me? I glanced at him and shouted. Su Bighead. Stop kicking my desk. My voice wasn't soft this time. The words Su Bighead echo in the classroom, the silence linger. Are you satisfied now? Not only does everyone know we're acquainted, but they also know your nickname. I raised my eyebrows at him. Su Kingin was small and thin when he was little, so his head looked big. That's why I gave him that nickname, even though he was now beautiful and charming. With a small face, I still like to call him that. Ha ha, Su Bighead. Our school beauty Su has a nickname. This transfer student is something else. Extra. School beauty Su has a nickname. Su Bighead. Given by the transfer student. Knock. A boy from another class suddenly appeared at the classroom door and knocked. Mr. Jong wants your class representative to collect the summer homework. Running errands for class 3 was always something the boys from other classes fought over. All for the chance to catch a glimpse of Su Kingin. Hearing this, Song Jingnian immediately stood up and said to the boy at the door, Okay, classmate. Thank you. Being in the same class, Su Kingin was already enough to make him proud. Being the class representative gave him even more of a sense of superiority. Groans of despair arose in the classroom. I thought old John forgot about it, so we still have to hand it in. Song Jingnian started collecting from the round next to him. By the time he reached Su Kingin, he had already collected a large stack. He placed the homework he was holding on Su Kingin's desk and shook his hands, pretending to be tired. He took Su Kek's homework and asked Su Kingin with a smile, Su Kingin, where's your summer homework? Didn't bring it. Su Kingin didn't even look up, he said, impatiently. Song Jingnian swallowed his words. He had to maintain his image in front of Su Kingin at all times. Okay, then remember to bring it tomorrow, having been rebuffed by Su Kingin. Song Jingnian naturally wanted to take it out on me. He deliberately bumped into my desk. Sorry, new student, this homework is too heavy. I didn't mean to bump into you, Song Jingnian said innocently. Oh, it's fine. I waved my hand generously. Who is Jong Haeoken, the famous master of counter schemes for miles around? I took out my summer homework from my bag, or rather, Su Kingin's summer homework. I deliberately flipped through it in front of him. Here's mine. The handwriting was identical to Su Kingin's. Song Jingnian was all too familiar with it. He had once taken advantage of his homework collecting duties to secretly copy Su Kingin's handwriting many times. What's wrong? Class rep, any problems? I looked at the shocked Song Jingnian provocatively. Playing mind games? Who doesn't know how to do that? Nothing. It's just that the handwriting looks a bit familiar. Song Jingnian forced a stiff smile. Could this homework be Su Kingin's? Or did Su Kingin help him write it? Song Jingnian's mind was full of questions, but he couldn't ask. He was afraid of hearing the truth, and even more afraid of others finding out. After all, in everyone's eyes, he was the only one who was a good match for Su Chinghan. Song Jingnian walked away dejectedly. Seeing this, Guoya put his arm around my neck. How did you do that? I've always disliked Song Jingnian's arrogant attitude. He brags about being classmates with Su Kingin for 3 years in middle school. And how close they are, from what I see. Su Kingin doesn't want to pay any attention to him at all. I couldn't take it anymore. No need to endure any longer. I turned my head, smiled, and gave Guoya a triumphant look. A faint smile appeared on Su Kingin's face, but he quickly suppressed it. He kicked my chair leg a few more times. Can you to be quiet? Throughout the day, students from other classes kept appearing at the door of class 3, looking at me. Besides those who came to see Su Kingin, a large portion came to see me. As a transfer student, appearing on the school's online forum on the first day was a first in the history of No. 1 high school. Did I become famous overnight? Classmate, standing at the door of someone else's classroom and blocking the way isn't very nice, Su Kingin said coldly to a girl. Su Zhua actually took the initiative to speak to someone. Why? Of course, it was because what annoyed him even more than being watched was me being watched. The last class was self-study. There wasn't much homework on the first day of school. Su Kingin finished 10 minutes before the bell. He packed his bag, glanced at the clock at the front of the classroom, and started kicking my chair again. Jong Haeoken, hurry up and pack your bag. School's almost over. I suppressed my anger and didn't turn around. Su Kingin continued kicking. Did you hear me? Don't you want to leave with me? Are you still mad? Why are you so petty? I'll apologize. Okay, it's all my fault, alright? Everyone in school thought Su Kingin was a man of few words. but only I knew how talkative he could be. Not talking to me for a day was already his limit. All right. I turned around and gave Sukingen a death glare. Sukingen continued, do you have any questions you don't understand? Ask me. I don't mind sacrificing my precious time to explain them to you. I was speechless. Sukingen, are you crazy? Can you shut up? Shut up. I suddenly lost my patience and yelled at Sukingen. Perhaps it was because I had regained my strength after taking the medicine Sukingen gave me, but my voice was full of energy. My shout startled the other students. Curious little heads turned towards us. I realized what I had just done, and politely apologized to everyone around me. Sun Jingyan smirked inwardly, as if Sukingen would like John Haoken. It's ridiculous that I even considered him a rival. But he forgot why I was angry with Sukingen. It was because Sukingen was talking too much. And why was Sukingen usually so quiet? It was because he was only interested in me. Sukingen wasn't angry at being scolded. Instead, he stuck his tongue out at me and made a face. I rolled my eyes back at him, and that meant the Cold War was over. After a day of emotional turmoil, the classmates seemed to be unfazed by our antics. After watching the show, they went back to their own business. I'm telling you, Sukingen definitely likes John Haoken. Doubt. Anyone with eyes can see that. Shh, don't let the class rep hear you. What are you afraid of? He's always so arrogant. He lost big time this time. They said not to let the class rep hear, but they actually wanted him to hear. Sun Jingyan clenched his fists. His knuckles turned white. Ring, the bell finally rang. The students chattered as they walked out of the classroom. Sukik slung her bag over her shoulder and asked Sukingen, what are you doing later? Going to paint? Sukingen pointed at me. Ask him, seriously, you're going with him after school? Sukek's voice cracked with excitement. And can you please stop talking to me in two-word sentences? Sukingen shook his head. No, my dad is picking me up. If you want to paint, go ahead. I'm going home. I turned to Sukingen and patted Guoya. Guoya, let's go. Then I won't go either. Let's do it another day. Sukingen finished speaking and followed us. Sukik trailed behind us, muttering, John Haoken, why has everything changed since you arrived? Sukingen, can you please act like a school beauty should? Guoya and I walked towards the school gate. Sukingen and Sukik followed behind. Beautiful girls and handsome boys are a sight to behold wherever they go. This sight quickly caused a stir. Hello, John Haoken. My name is Yan Shinyu. I'm from class 9. I like you. Will you be my boyfriend? Suddenly, amidst a group of cheering onlookers, a beautiful girl came up to me and greeted me. Although I had been confessed to many times in the past, it was still awkward to be confessed to by someone I had never met before I could speak. A cold voice came from behind. Sukingen walked over. You say you like John Haoken? You haven't even met him, and you say you like him. Isn't your like a little too cheap? Sukingen, mind your own business, okay? What does it have to do with you that I'm talking to John Haoken? This Yan Shinyu was also a famous figure at one high school, one of the few female bosses in the school. Sukingen grabbed my bag and pulled me to his side. Don't say it's none of my business. John Haoken's business is my business. Joke. You think just because everyone calls you school beauty you can stick your nose into everything. Yan Shinyu looked at me. John Haoken, can we be boyfriend and girlfriend? Sukingen raised his voice. Can't you understand what I'm saying? He rarely spoke in such an agitated tone. Forget it, Sukingen. Let's go. I tugged on Sukingen's clothes. Yan Shinyu, I'll remember you. I have to go home now. Goodbye. I dragged Sukingen to the school gate under the watchful eyes of the onlookers. Haoken, Kingen. A black car honked twice from across the street. Over here. It was my dad, Zhang Yunshuan. Hello, Uncle John. Sukingen got into the same car as me, in full view of everyone. Kingen, Haoken, how was school today? Any trouble? No, Haoken is very popular at school. Just now, a classmate wanted to be friends with him, right? Sukingen said sarcastically. Good to hear there was no trouble. Zhang Yunshuan smiled with satisfaction. Our parents were good friends, and they both liked us very much. They had privately discussed the possibility of becoming in-laws in the future. Of course, that was when we were very young. The car drove into the underground parking lot of a luxury residential complex. Sukingen and I bickered all the way. As soon as we entered the house, we smelled the aroma of food. My mom was a great cook. Sukingen often complained about the food at his house, and often came to our house to eat. My mom served Sukingen some food. Kingen, eat more. The food in Suking's bowl piled up into a small mountain. My mom kept putting food in his bowl. Look how skinny you are, thank goodness. I eat a lot, I just digest it quickly. Yet, he's already had 2 bowls, I blurted out thoughtlessly. Eating 2 bowls at your house is like being stingy. Sukingin kicked me under the table, giving me a look of disapproval. After dinner, we did our homework in my room. Or rather, I did my homework while Sukingin messed around. He had finished his homework at school and didn't even bring his bag home. I chewed on my pen, stumped by a physics problem. After thinking for a while, I started writing furiously, then crossed it out and started over. Gradually getting frustrated, you just wrote the formula wrong. Sukingin leaned over and spotted the problem with just a glance. Oh, I see, I felt so embarrassed. I had calculated a whole bunch of stuff, and it turned out I just wrote the formula wrong. TSK, Tisk, you're still so careless, when will you ever surpass me like this? Sukingin had consistently ranked in the top 3 in our grade for 3 years. Although my grades were also good, it seemed like other people's children were always better. My parents always told me to learn from Sukingin. I turned around, we both made mistakes. We agreed that whoever gets the lower score on this monthly exam has to be the other's errand boy for a month. Just you wait and see how I crush you in this exam, Sukingin. I gritted my teeth as I said this. The next morning, I opened the door and saw him waiting for me. Sukingin's house was across from mine. We rode our bikes to school together. The ringing of our bike bells was cheerful. We met Sukik at the intersection, near the school gate. She waved to us from afar. Boo-hoo, John Hayoken. You just stole my kingin away. Seeing how inseparable Sukingin and I were, Sukik couldn't help but feel jealous. I'm just kidding. This guy has been haunting me for 17 years. Please take him away from me, I remember now. The picture on Sukingin's middle school meal card was you. Ha ha ha, I've heard so much about you. I guess we should get to know each other again. Likewise. I've also heard a lot about Su Daozihua. We seemed to hit it off, like we had known each other for a long time. Sukingin locked his bike and squeezed between us. Let's go. Let's go. We're going to be late. A good day starts with morning reading. I was diligently memorizing English vocabulary when the homeroom teacher suddenly walked in and knocked on the blackboard. Everyone, look up, I have an announcement. We're having a diagnostic test next week. The scope of the test is everything we've learned so far, and it'll be in the same format as the college entrance exam. I hope everyone will take it seriously. What? A test right after school starts? I'm not ready yet. Everything we've learned means there's no scope at all. Groans filled the classroom. All right, settle down. Get back to what you were doing. Old John finished speaking and left the classroom. The agreed-upon time had come earlier than expected. Sukingin, I will definitely get a better score than you. I made up my mind. Hayoken, going to the bathroom was always like to go to the bathroom together during breaks. Guoya and I were no exception. I shook my head without looking up. I'm not going. I can still memorize a few more words. Guoya took out a carton of milk from his bag, inserted a straw, and pushed it towards me. Working so hard? Have some milk to nourish your brain. I took a sip of milk and continued muttering vocabulary words. Sukingin turned to me and said, John Hayoken. Cramming won't work. Don't even try. It's not embarrassing to lose to me. I scribbled a few words on a piece of paper, crumpled it into a ball, and threw it forward in a perfect arc. It landed on Sukingin's desk. Sukingin opened it. It read, Leave me alone. John Hayoken, you're scolding me again. We agreed that whoever gets the lower score has to be the other's errand boy for a month. No complaints, no regrets, you better keep your word. Don't cry when you lose. After saying that, Sukingin suddenly thought of a mischievous idea. He covered his mouth and chuckled as he drew a pig's head on the paper. Then he gently stuck it on my back. Sukik shook her head helplessly as she watched Sukingin's actions. Sukingin, I never knew you were so childish. Sukingin turned his head, his face cold again. As if he wasn't the same person just now. You don't understand. You're not Sukingin. Sukik put her hands on Sukingin's shoulders and shook him. Who are you? Give me back my kingin. Sukik, are you looking for a fight? I'm a black belt in Taekwondo, you know. Sukingin grabbed Sukek's hand and twisted her arm behind her back. Okay, I'm sorry. All right, let go. Sukik quickly begged for mercy. The bell rang soon after. A young, fashionably dressed female teacher walked in, holding a stack of papers. Is this a new teacher? She's so pretty. The female teacher on the podium heard the whispers and smiled. Hello, students, I'm your math teacher for the 12th grade. My surname is Yang, to better understand your current level. Let's do a little quiz before we officially start class. Ms. Yang skillfully divided the papers into 4 stacks and handed them to the first student in each row. Toss them back. Beautiful women are so cruel. A test right off the bat, Sukik muttered. I don't need to emphasize the exam rules, do I? You can hand in your papers as soon as you're finished. Ms. Yang strolled through the aisles, looking at the students' papers as she walked. She frowned and shook her head here, then nodded with satisfaction there. The first to hand in his paper was Song Jingyan. He always wanted to be the first to show off. He always had to be number 1. The second to hand in his paper was Guoya. I stopped him. Wait, hand mine in too. Just as Guoya was about to get up, Sukingen also nudged his chair. Could you also hand in mine and Kex? Guoya was surprised. If you remember correctly, this was the first time Sukingen had ever spoken to him directly. Sure, Guoya nodded. He collected all 4 papers and handed them in. Since the test was all multiple choice, it was easy to grade. Ms. Yang graded them quickly and finished before the end of class. I've decided that whoever got the highest score will be my class representative. One student got a perfect score on today's test. Jang Haeoken, you'll be the math class representative from now on. Any problems? I nodded. No problem, math is my forte. I was also the math class representative at my previous school. Another student only missed one question. Sukingen, please help Jang Haeoken when he's busy. Sukingen nodded. Okay. Ms. Yang. The previous class representative was a chubby boy. Being suddenly replaced was a bit embarrassing for him, but he accepted it gracefully. He accepted it readily. Besides, being the class representative and collecting homework was such a thankless task. Jang Haeoken, you're so amazing. Help me with my math in the future. After class, Sukik looked at me with admiration. I don't need to help you. Sukingen threw her a vocabulary book. Just memorize more words. Sukik gritted her teeth. Thank you very much. Then she muttered to herself, wow, look at Sukingen's possessiveness. 2 girls were fetching water and casually said, I used to think Jang Haeoken was just a pretty face. I didn't expect him to be so good at studying. Don't say that in front of Song Jingyan. Though, he'll be upset. Oh. I know, Song Jingyan and I are like fire and water now. Those posts on the school forum yesterday made him the biggest joke in the whole school. The morning finally ended. The students rushed to the cafeteria. Those who don't rush to eat have problems with their thinking. By the time Guoya and I reached the cafeteria, there was already a long line. I touched my growling stomach and stood on tiptoe to look ahead. I wondered what delicious food they had today. Do you think there will be any meat left by the time we get there? I had only eaten in the school cafeteria once, and I thought it was quite good. Unlike Guoya, who had been eating there for 2 years, and was already indifferent. Wow, there's braised pork today. And sweet and sour fish, that's my favorite. My eyes were glued to the trays of the students passing by. I was drooling. Wipe your drool. Guoya couldn't help but laugh at me. Food is essential for survival. Skipping a meal will make you hungry. We need to eat our fill so we can study well in the afternoon. Jang Haeoken, someone's waving at us up ahead. Who is that? They're not from our class, are they? My memory wasn't very good. Even after a whole day, I still hadn't matched all the names and faces in our class. Guoya whispered in my ear. It's Yan Xinyu. Oh, right. Is she calling me? I'll pretend I didn't hear. Yan Xinyu waved at me vigorously. Why don't you come over here? You're too far back in line. There won't be any good food left. The girls, in line with her, started teasing again. Hey. Yan Xinyu. Why are you so nice to Jang Haeoken? I quickly waved my hand. No, cutting in line is not good. And I don't want to trouble you, Yan Xinyu. I turned around and pretended to discuss something with Guoya. Ignoring Yan Xinyu, cutting in line wasn't good, and I didn't want to have anything to do with her. Though we were indeed almost last in line, by the time we reached the food counter, there were only a few dishes left. My favorites were all gone. Oh well, something is better than nothing. Guoya and I wandered around the cafeteria with our trays, looking for a place to sit. Since only the 12th grade had started school, only half of the seats in the cafeteria were available. Almost all the seats were taken. Jang Haeoken, Guoya, over here. There's space. Sukik waved at us from afar. Only she and Sukingen were sitting at the large table. Let's go, Guoya. Let's sit over there. I walked straight over. Guoya had no choice but to follow. As soon as I sat down, I asked, why is everyone crowded together and not sitting at your table? Sukik quipped, Probably don't want to lose their appetite. Look at Su Kingan's face, so cold. Who can eat with him sitting next to them? I nodded. It was only after I came to know one high school that I realized how different the Su Kingan at school was from the Su Kingan I knew. Hey, Su Kingan, don't you hate fish? Why did you get sweet and sour fish? Seeing the sweet and sour fish on Su Kingan's tray, my eyes lit up. Su Kingan said, indifferently, doesn't my mom always say eating fish is good for your eyes? But I took a bite, and really couldn't eat it. If you like it, you can have it all. I quickly transferred all the sweet and sour fish from Su Kingan's tray to mine. Then I won't stand on ceremony. I took a bite. How can you not like something so delicious? What a waste. Su Kingan really didn't like fish. He never had, since he was little, but he knew I loved it. So when he saw that the sweet and sour fish was almost gone, he specially got it from me, afraid I wouldn't get any. But the aloof Su Kingan would never admit it. Su Kik put down her drink and said to Guoya, Guoya, why don't you say something too? Guoya had also transferred from another city in the first semester of 11th grade, because he was a bit introverted and didn't have a deskmate. He had always kept to himself. I had been sitting behind Su Kik and Su Kingan for so long, and it was always Su Kik who initiated conversations with me. I only exchanged a few words with Guoya, and I was even less familiar with Su Kingan. Guoya smiled shyly. I don't know what to say. I smiled and patted Guoji's shoulder. Guoya, you're the first good friend I've made at this school. I'm so lucky. Guoya smiled. I'm the lucky one to have made a good friend like you. Do you two have to be so complimentary to each other? Su Kingan put down his chopsticks and said sincerely to Guoya, I'm telling you, being friends with John Haoken is very risky. It's a very dangerous thing. See this scar? Su Kingan pointed to a faint mark on his right hand. John Haoken caused this. Do you know why my foot was swollen like a pig's trotter in 8th grade and I couldn't wear shoes? So I had to wear slippers and hop around on one leg every day. Su Kingan turned to Su Kik. It was because I was teaching John Haoken how to ride a bike. I fell 10 times. I won't list everything else, just be careful. Su Kingan finished speaking and continued eating. Listening to Su Kingan's accusations, I smiled sheepishly. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Why do you still remember something that happened so long ago? So, John Haoken, have you and Su Kingan known each other since childhood? Guoya understood. While Su Kingan was complaining, he also seemed to be showing off a little, as if he was saying, John Haoken has always been in my world. I nodded proudly. Yeah, we've known each other since we were kids. I've been his boss since we were little. Seeing Su Kingan's darkening face, I corrected myself. I mean, we've been buddies since we were little. Don't worry, Guoya, you're my buddy to now. Su Kingan rolled his eyes at me. Have some shame, John Haoken. Su Kik counted on her fingers. Let me get this straight. I'm Su Kingan's best friend, and also John Haoken's buddy. So am I also John Haoken's buddy? That's right. I nodded. Su Kik continued counting on her fingers. John Haoken and Guoya are good friends. I'm also good friends with John Haoken. So am I also good friends with Guoya? Yes. 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 I interrupted Su Kik. The four of us are all good buddies now. We'll share will and woe together. Okay, cheers. Haha, cheers. Guoya laughed along. The four top students of class 3, grade 12 were born. Everyone perceives time differently. I felt like this week had passed by particularly quickly. Going to and from school with Su Kingan every day was much more fun than being alone. In a blink of an eye, it was Friday. I had gradually adapted to life at one high school. It was particularly muggy today. The old fan spun mechanically above the classroom, but it wasn't very effective. Plus, the upcoming weekend was just around the corner. The students were restless during the afternoon self-study period, their minds already wandering outside the school. Guoya and I had just returned to the classroom from the bathroom when we saw Jia Pengfei, the most boisterous student in our class, writing on the blackboard. I read the title, Class 3, Grade 12 Annual Selection. The categories were varied. Most handsome beau, most beautiful girl, nicest person, cuttest person, funniest person, etc. So every class liked to do these weird polls. After he finished writing, Jia Pengfei tossed the chalk into the box and said to the class, everyone is welcome to participate. Write the name of the person you want to vote for on a piece of paper and hand it in. We'll count the votes during the next break. Didn't we already do this once? Why are we doing it again? Who knows? Maybe the most handsome beau changed after John Haoken transferred in. Whatever. It's just for fun. Su Kik leaned over and asked Su Kingan. Hey, Su Kingan, Do you think so? Sukingin said without looking up. I don't know, and I don't care. Sukik continued. No. If I become the most beautiful girl in our class, we'll be the school beauty and the class beauty. How perfect is that? Sukingin rolled his eyes. Boring. Whoever wants to vote can vote. I'm not participating. After saying that, Sukingin got up and left through the back door. Guoya tore a piece of scrap paper in half. John Haoken, who do you want to vote for? He gave me half. I shook my head. Troubled. I don't know. I'm not familiar with anyone. Guoya patted my shoulder. It's okay. Just choose anyone. Or you can choose the same as me. For most beautiful girl, it's definitely Sukingin. And for most handsome beau, it's definitely you. Guoya wrote John Haoken without hesitation. I said as I wrote, I can't bring myself to vote for myself, so I'll vote for you as most handsome beau. After I finished writing, I folded the paper in half and then in half again, and placed it on the podium along with Guoji's. The commotion caused by the small poll lasted for a while, before gradually subsiding with the start of class. 45 minutes was just enough time to finish a math test. I put down my pen as the bell rang. Jia Pengfei walked onto the podium and opened the slips of paper. All right. The exciting moment has arrived. I'm going to start counting the votes. I'll write each name on the blackboard and tally the votes. After counting, Sukingin retained the title of most beautiful girl by a landslide. Guoya won the title of nicest person by a margin of 3 votes. Good for him. Other categories also had their winners. Only the most handsome boy category was a bit complicated. Song Jingyan, 20 votes. Su Kon, 4 votes. Me, 20 votes. A total of 45 votes. One person didn't vote. Everyone looked at each other. Who is it? Yeah, who didn't vote? Guoyat whispered to me. John Haoken, I think you've already won. Song Jingyan definitely voted for himself. I shrug. Whatever, I didn't really want to win anyway. I didn't care about the result at all, but Song Jingyan didn't think so. He was originally the most handsome beau. Now he had lost so many supporters. Song Jingyan's face was expressionless, but he cursed the 20 people who didn't vote for him in his heart. Sukik nudged Sukingin, who was sleeping on his desk. Sukingin, wake up. Did you not vote? Sukingin was never interested in these things. He was sound asleep. He was very annoyed at being woken up. What? I said I'm not interested. Sukik tugged on his arm again. We've got the results for everything else. Only most handsome boy is left. Song Jingyan and John Haoken are tied. We just need your vote. Sukingin, please vote. Otherwise, all our efforts will be wasted. Everyone started persuading him. Just vote. Sukingin was still half asleep. He squinted at the blackboard. Sukik said dramatically, we have the results for everything else, except for most handsome beau. Such a hassle. Sukingin stood up and walked to the podium under everyone's gaze. He drew a firm tally mark under my name. There. Happy. He put down the chalk and left the classroom. Sudao Zhua was consistent. He never chose Song Jingyan. Ha. We have a new most handsome beau. With Sukingin's decisive vote, I was successfully elected the new most handsome beau of Class 3, Grade 12. Song Jingyan stood up abruptly and stormed out of the classroom. He stopped Sukingin at the door and demanded, Sukingin, why do you always side with John Haoken? What's so good about him? Sukingin replied coldly, you and John Haoken are not comparable. He left Song Jingyan standing there awkwardly. After the interesting break time entertainment, everyone's enthusiasm for studying increased a little. We made it to the end of school. On the way to the school gate, Sukik asked the other 3, Sukingin, Haoken, Guoya, do you have any plans for the weekend? Why don't we study together? I was the first to respond, sure, I'm free. And Sukingin is free too. Then it's settled. No one will be home at my place this weekend, so you can all come over to my house to study. Sukik said excitedly, great, I've never been to your house before. Sukingin took a step to the side. Are you trying to distance yourself from us? I didn't say I was going. Sukik immediately panicked. She shook his shoulder and whined. Kingin, please come. If you don't come, I'll be the only girl. That's not good. Guoya and I were so disgusted that we immediately jumped away from her, keeping a meter's distance, but I don't need to study. Sukingin had a way of delivering the most devastating blows in the most indifferent tone. These two are not normal. I shook my head disapprovingly. It seemed that only I could solve the problem, this critical moment. Oh, this is easy. Since Sudao Zhua disdains to join us, let's disband our study group and find a high-quality goddess to replace Sukingin and form a new one. I nudged Guoya and said with a flirtatious smile, There are plenty of pretty and smart girls out there, right? Seeing Su Kingin's increasingly murderous expression from behind, Guo Ya swallowed his words of agreement. Try it, and I'll tell Uncle John that you're being dishonest at school and flirting with girls. Su Kingin turned to the other two. 9 a.m. tomorrow, don't be late. After saying that, Su Kingin continued pulling me towards the bus stop without looking back. TSK, the school beauty is so possessive. Guo Ya sighed as he watched Su Kingin and me walk away. Su Kik suddenly leaned closer and whispered, Guo Ya, 9 a.m. tomorrow, don't be late. Guo Ya turned his head and smiled, nodding, okay. He walked across the street. Su Kingin didn't let go of my hand until we reached the bus stop. We were taking a bus today. My dad only picked us up on the first day. From now on, he would be leaving early and coming home late. It would be hard for me to even see him, so the reason he transferred me was so that Su Kingin and I could go to and from school together. Taking the bus is fine, but why hold my hand? I don't know what got into him. Su Kingin seemed a little angry. For some reason, I suddenly felt less energetic. I could only mutter to myself as we returned to a residential complex. The landscaping in the complex was beautiful. Various trees and flowers were planted along the winding paths. Why do you keep looking at me? Su Kingin had noticed that I kept looking back at him every few steps. Nothing, you're so popular at school. Why didn't I notice how handsome you were before? Su Kingin poked my head. You're just realizing it now. Only a fool like you would dislike such a super handsome guy like me every day. I quickly smiled. But you have good taste. I admit I'm a little handsome, but next time, be a little more low-key. It's not very good to choose me as most handsome boy in front of the whole class. Why are you walking so fast? Wait for me. As I was talking, I realized that Su Kingin had sped up and walked away. You must have some misunderstanding about your looks. I thought they were choosing the ugliest person, so I chose you. Su Kingin said this deliberately after I caught up. I seemed to ignore his words and suddenly asked seriously, want some ice cream? Let's go. I'll treat you. Su Kingin was stunned by my sudden change of topic. Before he could react, I dragged him to the convenience store. I grabbed my favorite vanilla flavor and Su Kingin's favorite strawberry flavor. Then we went to the swings in the small garden downstairs and sat down. It was evening, the time when children would come down to play. A little boy, about 4 or 5 years old, was a step too late and didn't get a swing. He could only stand there and watch. Su Kingin felt embarrassed for me. He nudged me and whispered, John Haoken, aren't you ashamed of fighting over a swing with a little kid? I looked up at Su Kingin and said shamelessly, why should I be ashamed? First come, first served, right? Then I turned to the little boy, Lele, do you think I'm handsome? The little boy immediately raised his head high and said in a childish voice, how Jeej is the most handsome? The most handsome Jeej in the whole world. I smiled with satisfaction. Then pushed the swing for me for 1 minute. And I'll let you have it, okay, it's a deal. The little boy went behind me and started pushing the swing. Su Kingin wanted to find a hole to hide in. If the boy's parents saw this, they would definitely think we were bullying him. Lele, right. Step back a little, I'll push you, okay? Although Su Kingin was aloof, he was still very kind to children. But the little boy immediately refused. No. I can push myself, I don't need your help, hey. This kid doesn't appreciate it. He has personality. So Su Kingin leaned against the pole, eating his ice cream and watching the little boy push the swing. Okay. Leled, it's your turn now. After 1 minute, I finally got off the swing, patted my butt, and left. You're something else. Even bullying little kids, perhaps remembering the years he had been tormented by me. Su Kingin couldn't help but feel sorry for Leled. I didn't respond to him. Instead, I smiled and asked, Su Kingin, do you remember that time when you finished your ice cream and then stole mine? And I cried. You were afraid of getting scolded by your parents. So you pushed the swing for me, just like Lele. Of course, I'll remember. You weren't satisfied no matter how long I pushed, so I just kept pushing and pushing. My arms were so sore the next day I couldn't even lift them. Ha ha ha, we both laughed. Those were the good old days, carefree every day, with nothing to worry about. I suddenly felt a pang of sadness, but I couldn't explain why. Maybe it was because we were growing up. We only had 1 year left until the college entrance exam. We were stressed and confused about the future. I used to think that I would live with my parents and play with Su Kingin for the rest of my life, play with Su Kingin. I always took it for granted that Su Kingin and I were each other's most important friends. But recently, I suddenly realized how big the world was. My mom walked into my room and opened the curtains. Haoken, Didn't you say you were going to study at a classmate's house? It's so late. Why aren't you up yet? Sunlight streamed in through the window and shone on my face. What time is it? I groaned and struggled for a bit, then pulled the covers over my head and went back to sleep. Shen Bing pulled me out of the covers. It's 8:30. Get up. Hurry up and get ready. As I walked past the living room with my messy hair, I caught a glimpse of a beautiful figure sitting on the sofa. I looked closely. It was Su Qing'an. Morning. Lazy pig. Su Qing'an swallowed his sandwich and tilted his head at me. I've been waiting for you for 13 minutes and 14 seconds. Shut up and eat your breakfast. Take this with you and share it with your friends. My mom came out of the kitchen with 2 containers and put them in my bag. They were filled with various cut fruits. She couldn't help but criticize her son. Zhang Heoken, go wash up. Look how sloppy you are. Whoever marries you will be very unlucky. Su Qing'an almost choked on his milk. I turned and went into the bathroom. I was startled by my reflection in the mirror. My hair looked like it had been struck by lightning. There were even traces of drool at the corners of my mouth. A flurry of splashing sounds came from the bathroom. 10 minutes later, a refreshed and handsome me was born again. Mom, we're leaving. I grabbed my bag, a sandwich from the table, and pulled Su Qing'an out the door. Be careful, come home early. Shen Bing's reminders faded away with the sound of the closing door. It took about 20 minutes to get to Su Kek's house by car. When we were almost there, Guoya texted me asking where I was. He had just gotten off the bus and was waiting at the bus stop for us to go in together. Heoken, Su Qing'an, you're here. Let's go in. Since Su Qing'an wasn't talking, Guoya had already been bombarded with messages from Su Kek. The security guard at the gate refused to let them in until he called Su Kek to confirm. I had heard that Su Kek was rich, but I didn't expect his residential complex to be so grand. As soon as we entered, Su Kek gave us a tour of the house. The house was clean and tidy. The decor wasn't luxurious, but rather simple and elegant. Guoya, Su Kek, and I chatted non-stop. Only Su Qing'an remembered that they were here to study. We finished the tour. Shouldn't we start studying now? He said. I looked at my watch. It was almost 10 o'clock. We quickly sat down at the dining table. Guoya and I sat on one side, Su Qing'an and Su Kek on the other. Since the mock exam was next week, we didn't have any homework this weekend. We were just supposed to review on our own. My class was known as the top student class. We all chose the traditional science combination: physics, chemistry, and biology. Guoya suggested, let's each be responsible for a subject we're best at. That way, we can review more efficiently. I'm best at physics and biology, and my weakest subject is Chinese. I immediately said, I'm best at math and chemistry, and my worst subject is English. Just mentioning the word English gave me a headache. Su Kek chimed in. What a coincidence. Guoya, I'm the opposite of you. I'm great at Chinese, but not so good at English. We all looked at Su Qing'an. Su Qing'an shrugged helplessly and said, indifferently, I can't answer that question. Because I'm good at every subject. We rolled our eyes inwardly, but we couldn't argue with him. He was so narcissistic. But Su Qing'an was indeed a top student. He had consistently been in the top 3 for 3 years. He had never fallen from grace. Guoya suppressed his smile and summarized. So, Heoken will be in charge of math, I'll be in charge of physics. And Su Kek will be in charge of Chinese. As for Su Qing'an, he'll be in charge of the other subjects. How about that? If there are no objections, let's begin. Su Kek glanced at me. Why don't we start with math? While our brains are still somewhat clear. I tentatively handed the math textbook to Su Qing'an. Su Qing'an took the textbook and flipped through it, circling the key points. A minute later, he closed the book and handed it to us. If you can understand all these key points, getting a 140 shouldn't be a problem. I frowned after glancing at it. With this level, you still want to be my rival? Su Kek looked at me in surprise. Rival? You're actually competing with Su Qing'an. After all these years, this was the first time Su Kek had seen someone consider Su Qing'an a rival. I waved my hand. Yes, I'm competing with him. I wrote something on a piece of paper, then placed it in the middle of the table. Here are 5 questions I came up with based on the difficult and important points. You can try them. Su Qing'an looked at the questions, his beautiful eyes narrowing, as if he was intrigued. Su Kek looked at the questions and exclaimed, Heoken, these questions are brutal. How many knowledge points did you combine? Su Kek gave me a thumbs up. They started working on the problems. But 20 minutes passed, and no one had solved all the problems completely, especially Su Qing'an, who was stuck on the last question. I looked at their papers for a while and nodded. Not bad. Even if you can't solve it, you can still get some points for writing down the formulas. Then I took out a blank piece of paper and started explaining the steps to solve each problem. Sukik and Guoya listened with their mouths open, nodding repeatedly. After listening to my explanation, they seemed to have been enlightened. They were completely enlightened. Sukik reached out to touch my head, but I dodged it nimbly. She exclaimed, "Wow, you can solve math problems like that. Jang Haoken, what's inside your head?" Then she received a glare from Sukingen. Seeing Guoya slumped dejectedly on the table, I couldn't help but ask with concern, "What's wrong? Why are you so down?" Guoya looked like he had been tortured by math. He pouted, "Math is too hard." "It is," I agreed. Then suddenly remembered the fruit in my bag. I perked up. "Break time. Let's eat some fruit and then continue." Sukik looked at the time. It was almost noon. "What do you guys want for lunch?" "I'll make it for you." We were all surprised. I widened my eyes in disbelief. "You can cook." Sukik rolled up her sleeves proudly. "Of course, I'll show you my skills." We didn't stand on ceremony, watching Sukik skillfully chopping and cooking in the kitchen. Guoya and I couldn't help but exclaim. I didn't expect Sukik to have this side to her. I suddenly felt a chill down my spine. It was from Sukingen's resentful gaze behind me. The food was ready soon. Sukik took for plates and served the rice, then poured the curry beef over it. Meat and vegetables, nutritious and delicious. "All right, gentlemen, please enjoy." The aroma made Guoya and me drool. Our stomachs rumbled. Guoya took a bite. Delicious. He rarely sounded so excited. He stuffed his mouth full of food. I couldn't help but praise her. "Wow, Sukik, you're such a good cook." Sukik finally felt appreciated. She raised her eyebrows at Sukingen proudly. "See? I'm better than you at cooking." "Cooking is nothing, I can cook too," Sukingen retorted. I almost spat curry in his face. I retorted mercilessly, "Sukingen, how can you say that? I had diarrhea for a whole day and night after eating your plain noodles last time." Sukik and Guoya tried to suppress their laughter, their shoulders shaking. We decided who would wash the dishes by playing rock-paper-scissors. God is fair. Sukingen could definitely win with his skills, but he always had bad luck when it came to games, especially when playing with me. By the time Sukingen finished washing the dishes, Guoya and I were taking a nap at the table. The sunlight was shining on my face through the window. Sukingen quietly brought a chair over and sat next to me. He took a notebook from the table and held it in front of my face. Blocking the sunlight, he held it there for a long time. Sukingen slowly moved his sore shoulders. He looked up and met Guoji's eyes, who was smiling at me as I was about to fall asleep. He reached out and tapped my phone. Guoya, who was here for the first time, said, "So Sudazi Hua. That name was given by ... He pointed at me. Understandingly, I turned my head and closed my eyes. A moment later, Sukik sent a message. She was at the door, calling us. "They're here." Sukingen quickly withdrew his hand. Guoya and I were also woken up. I rubbed my eyes and walked over gradually. "Sukingen, what are you doing here?" Sukingen quickly moved his chair. "Maybe he's asleep." "I'm sitting here watching you drool." He wouldn't admit it. "You drooled all over the table." I quickly wiped my mouth and looked at the table. I didn't drool. Guoya came to the rescue. It was Sukik who sent the message. "Let's continue." I just summarized some physics problem-solving techniques. You can take a look. The day passed quickly. Soon it was time to go home. The 4 top students helped each other. I had reviewed almost everything in one day. I was assigned to the last seat in the last exam room. The 2 of us, who were usually inseparable, were now at opposite ends of the spectrum. The boys from other classes in this exam room always looked forward to exam week, because only then could they experience what it was like to be in the same class as Sukingen. If they were lucky, they could even exchange a few words with him. When Sukingen walked in, the classroom erupted in excitement. "He's here, he's here, Sukingen is here." Before Sukingen arrived, there were already several bottles of drinks on his desk. There was a note on each bottle that said, "Good luck on the exam." Sukingen picked up the drinks and glanced at them, then took them to the podium. After the proctor walked in, "Teacher, please have some water." The proctor was a middle-aged man with a balding head. He guessed that the drinks were from other students. He scanned the room and said, "Some boys don't focus on their studies and only think about bringing drinks to others. Don't do these unnecessary things next time. Focus on your studies, okay?" Meanwhile, my arrival in the last exam room also caused quite a stir. Jang Haoken is really handsome, no kidding. Anyone who can catch Sudazi was I must be special. I pretended not to hear anything. and walked through the crowd to my seat. My seat was in the corner of the exam room, behind the second to last student in the grade. I was satisfied with this seat. It was low-key enough. The second to last student, like the top student, was often a prominent figure in the school, coincidentally. This person was an old acquaintance. Hi, Heokan. Yeon Shinyu came over to greet me as soon as she saw me. She sat up straight. She was tall and had a confident aura. If you didn't know her, you would never guess that she was a terrible student. I ignored her and went straight to my seat. As soon as I sat down, Yeon Shinyu turned to me. Hey, why are you ignoring me? I looked at her, speechless. If you're going to ask me to let you cheat, don't bother. I won't do it. Yeon Shinyu chuckled. You're kind of like Soo Kingin sometimes. A little bit self-righteous. When did I say I wanted to cheat off you? I never cheat. Okay. I nodded. Right. If you cheated, you wouldn't be last in the grade. The exam officially began with the ringing of the bell. Soo Kingin finished his test half an hour early. Since he couldn't hand it in early, he took a nap on his desk. The other students who had finished also sat quietly. But in my exam room, the classroom became noisy. Except for a few who were determined to do well. The rest were whispering, humming, tapping their desks, and playing with their pens. I sigh. I hadn't finished my essay yet, and the noise was distracting me. Yeon Shinyu suddenly shouted, "This is an exam, can you be quiet?" Everyone, including the proctor, was startled. Yeon Shinyu used to be one of the nosy ones in the exam room. She was never quiet during exams, but now she was maintaining order. Was the noise disturbing her sleep? But her shout was effective. The classroom quickly quieted down. The same thing happened in the following exams. After the bell rang, the last person in each row collected the test papers. When I collected Yeon Shinyu's paper, I noticed that the essay pages were blank. She hadn't written anything. I was a little confused. Even a few words would have gotten her some points. I wondered if she was too lazy to write, or if she did it on purpose. Okay, you can leave now. After the proctor dismissed us, Soo Kingin was the first to leave the exam room. Soo Kingin, someone called him from behind. Soo Kingin recognized the voice. It was Song Jingyan. Soo Kingin pretended not to hear, and continued walking. But Song Jingyan caught up. How was the exam? Soo Kingin replied, indifferently, pretty good. He turned to leave, but Song Jingyan persisted. We have math this afternoon. Do you have any predictions? I heard you can always predict the test questions. Soo Kingin was getting impatient. This guy was like chewing gum. He couldn't shake him off. He was about to lose his temper. When Soo Kik popped up from behind. Predictions? I have some. Class rep. Do you want to hear them? She winked at Soo Ching Han. Soo Kingin quickly took the opportunity to slip away. I returned to my seat after collecting the test papers and slowly packed my things. Suddenly, the classroom became noticeably nosy. Everyone looked towards the door. Isn't that Soo Kingin? Why is he here? Is he looking for someone? Who could he be looking for here? You must be delirious from the exam. Soo Kingin knocked on the classroom door and called out to me in the last row. John Heokan, hurry up. His gaze shifted to the front row and landed on Yeon Shinyu. Soo Kingin frowned slightly. I quickly walked over to Soo Kingin. Why are you here? If I remember correctly, the first exam room is at the other end of the hallway upstairs. This isn't on the way back to our classroom. Soo Kingin didn't bother making excuses. Why do you talk so much? He changed the subject and asked as he walked, how was it? Are you used to this exam room? I waved my hand. I wasn't used to it at first. It was too nosy. Then I suddenly remembered Yeon Shinyu's blank test paper and couldn't help but ask, do you know Yeon Shinyu? What kind of person is she? It wasn't the first time Soo Kingin had heard a girl's name from me. But this time felt different. He asked warily, why are you suddenly asking about her? Did she say something to you? I looked at Soo Kingin. No, nothing. I'm just curious. She didn't write a single word for her essay. I seriously suspect she deliberately gets the lowest score every time. Soo Kingin suddenly stopped and said seriously, so what? Probably some trouble at home, so she's deliberately not studying hard or something. Anyway, I'm warning you, stay away from her. Why should I listen to you? Because Shenyi temporarily entrusted your guardianship at school to me. Soo Kingin suddenly felt powerful. Everyone who saw us along the way whispered. Soo Kingin and I seemed to be used to being the center of attention. We didn't care about the stares, we just kept chatting and bickering. Jong Heokan, you're finally back. Soo Kik immediately came up to us. Guoya was already waiting at the classroom door with his meal card. Let's eat, I'm starving. The The four top students gathered in the cafeteria again. During lunch, I suddenly remembered a key point that might be on the test, and mentioned it. After the math exam, I was surrounded by the three of them, showering me with praise. "John Haeoken," Sukik said excitedly. "Thank goodness you helped us review math. I think I can get 10 more points than last time." Guoya opened a bottle of ice cold cola he had just bought from the store and handed it to me. "Haeoken, you're a lifesaver. That knowledge point you mentioned at lunch was exactly what I needed for the last problem." I glanced at him. "That's all it takes for a bottle of cola." Guoya immediately said, "Of course not. I'll treat you to dinner." "What do you want to eat, boss?" "Me too." Sukik raised her hand. "I vote for hot pot." Guoya seconded. "I vote for hot pot too." Sukik saw Sukingen nod and made the decision. "It's settled then. Hot pot this weekend. It's a deal." The 3-day mock exam quickly passed. That afternoon, we briefly relaxed and then began the long and anxious wait for the results. Sukingen turned to me. "So, how confident are you that you'll beat me?" One said stubbornly, "Not much, just 99.999%. After witnessing Sukingen's prowess a few days ago, I regretted making such a rash bet, but I told myself I couldn't back down. Sukingen chuckled. "Okay, I'll be waiting." Everyone was still chattering and comparing answers when old John, our homeroom teacher, walked in and cleared his throat. All right, you've all worked hard these past few days. No self-study this afternoon. Go out and play on the field." Cheers erupted in the classroom. Finally having some free time. Debo's first choice was, of course, to play ball. Whether it was the basketball court or the soccer field, it was always full. Guoya and I went straight to play basketball. "Let's go watch John Haeoken play," two girls from the front row rushed out. "Kingen, why don't we go watch too?" Seeing all the girls going to watch them play basketball, Sukik couldn't help but want to join in the fun. Although Sukingen grew up with me, he had never really watched me play basketball. When I was in elementary school, I was short and often played in the sandbox with them. "Sure. Let's go. I want to see how he plays." She linked arms with Sukik and headed towards the field. "Hey, Kingen, walk faster if you want to watch." Sukik pulled Sukingen out of the classroom. "Wait, this isn't the way to the field." We were supposed to turn right after going down the stairs, but Sukik was pulling her to the left. Sukingen couldn't help but wonder, "Isn't this the way to the store? You dummy, it's so hot. You have to bring John Haeoken some water if you're going to watch him play." Sukik looked exasperated. She didn't know what to do with this aloof girl. "Is that necessary? I'm sure plenty of girls are bringing him water. He doesn't need mine. How can he not need it? Besides, whether he needs it or not is his business. Whether you give it to him or not is your business." Sukik was very dedicated to her role as wingwoman. Sukingen suddenly narrowed her eyes. "Kik, don't tell me you like John Haeoken too. Are you bringing him water too?" Sukik almost fainted from anger. "What are you talking about? I don't like John Haeoken." Sukingen exclaimed. "If it's not for John Haeoken, could it be for Guoya?" Sukik was exasperated. "I'm not bringing water for anyone. Are you going or not?" As soon as Sukingen and Sukik entered the gym, they heard cheers and the sound of the basketball hitting the hoop. The gym wasn't any cooler than outside. Standing at the entrance, you could smell the sweat of youth. Sukingen wrinkled her nose. "So many people crowded here. I don't know what's so interesting." Most of the girls didn't understand basketball. They were just there to watch the handsome boys. They were just there to see the handsome boys. Sukingen spotted me on the court. I just made a 3-pointer. My shot was smooth and effortless. My movements were smooth and fluid. The girls screamed. Sukingen and Sukik squeezed to the front. I saw them and smiled at them. The screams got even louder. "The transfer student is so handsome. I'm his fan now." But Sukingen didn't hear any of it. He looked at me on the court, sunny and healthy, full of youthful energy. A single smile could make the girls scream. "He's so popular with the girls even though he just transferred here," Sukingen muttered. I walked over and waved my hand in front of his face. "Hey, what are you thinking about? Are you mesmerized by my basketball skills?" Sukingen was lost in thought. Halftime had come so quickly that he was stunned and just stood there. I naturally took the drink from his hand. "This is for me, right? Thanks. But next time, buy me a lemon-flavored one. I don't like peach." Sukingen realized that he was surrounded by people. "Then don't drink it. So many people are waiting to give you water." Guoya and I gulped down half the bowl and handed the rest to Sukingen and Sukik before returning to the court. As soon as I got back on the court, Sukik whispered excitedly to Sukingen, "Hey, Kingen, You should have seen how Jong Haeokan rejected all those girls who tried to give him water. He came straight to you. It was so sweet. Why are you so oblivious? I don't understand basketball. I'm thinking about the chemistry problem. Soo Kyungin didn't know why he lied. Maybe he didn't expect that he would one day be so flustered around Jong Haeokan. Soo-kik shook her head and muttered, "Top student Gu, you never stop thinking about studying. No wonder you're always number one." She didn't notice that Soo Kyungin was acting strange today. Soo Kyungin came back to his senses. "What did you say?" Soo-kik rolled her eyes. "Nothing. I said you're a nerd." Soo Kyungin was too proud to argue with her. He looked back at me on the court. Watching people play basketball was quite interesting. Unsurprisingly, our team won by a large margin. The audience cheered enthusiastically. The cheers continued for a long time. This time, Soo Kyungin wasn't distracted. When I walked over, he handed me his drink. I was stunned for a second, then smiled and took it. The beads of sweat on my forehead seemed to sparkle in his eyes. The smell of sweat in the gym seemed to turn sweet. I said softly to Soo Kyungin, "Let's go. Pack up and go home." My casual words seemed to carry a different meaning, yet nothing seemed to have changed. The words I had heard countless times echoed in Soo Kyungin's mind. "What's wrong, Kyungin? Why is your face red? Is it too stuffy in the gym?" On the way back to the classroom, Soo-kik noticed that Soo Kyungin was silent. And his face was slightly flushed. She thought he had heat stroke. I'm fine. Soo Kyungin quickly shook his head and ran a few steps to prove that he was okay. When I saw Soo Kyungin, everything went back to normal. He became cold and indifferent again. On the way home, I watched Soo Kyungin devour a chicken burger and couldn't help but clap. Don't school beauties have to maintain their image? Why should I maintain my image in front of you? Soo Kyungin looked around and replied without thinking, "Right. Are you still eating dinner later?" Of course, seeing my worried expression, Soo Kyungin thought I was afraid he would eat all my food. "Don't worry, I'm not eating at your house today." These past few days, some people were anxious, afraid that their grades would drop. Others were full of anticipation, eager to see if their hard work had paid off. Every time a teacher came in, I craned my neck to look, thinking that they were going to announce the results. Finally, it was Friday afternoon. Before the first class, I returned from the bathroom and saw that Soo Kyungin's seat was empty. He didn't come back even after the bell rang. 10 minutes passed, and he still wasn't back. I turned to Guoya. "Where's Soo Kyungin? Where did he go?" "He's helping the teachers grade papers," Guoya said. The class president and Song Jingnian are all helping the teachers so we can get the results before the weekend. Oh, in the office, the teachers were grading papers quickly and passionately. They usually graded the papers from the last exam room last, because those papers were the most varied and the most difficult to grade. Old John made a big X with his red pen. "This kid, what is he writing? It's completely irrelevant." The biology teacher shook his head and chuckled. "Look at this one. The test paper read, 'Teacher, please give me some points. I really don't know how to do this problem.'" Trying to act cute with me, the math teacher smiled with satisfaction. "Well, I found a talent here." She quickly marked the answers correct, nodding as she went. "Neat handwriting. Clear thinking. This score should be from the first exam room. I'll have to see who this is." Soo Kyungin listened quietly. Feeling a little proud for some reason, he chuckled. Old John immediately said, "Who else could it be?" "Jong Haeokan, the transfer student in our class. He's in the last exam room." Old John was even prouder than Soo Kyungin. No matter how much he criticized his students in class, he was proud of them outside. They were all good kids once they left the classroom. Besides, I was usually quite well behaved. I had never caused any trouble, and this time, I had made Old John proud. The test papers were sealed when Soo Kyungin and the others were grading them. But now, whether they were sealed or not didn't matter to Soo Kyungin. 149. Soo Kyungin wrote my math score on the test paper and nodded with satisfaction as if it were his own score. Meanwhile, after 2 agonizing self-study periods, I finally waited for Soo Kyungin and Old John to return. After the class president and Soo Kyungin helped Old John place the stacks of test papers on the podium, Old John finally said, "Everyone, put down your pens. The mock exam results are out. I'm going to hand out the papers now." Although I knew I wouldn't do badly, I was still a little nervous. My palms were sweating, especially when Soo Kyungin gave me an ambiguous smile as he walked back. It made me even more nervous. Old John pushed his glasses up his nose, his face serious. "Let's talk about the overall situation. From this mock exam, I've noticed that many students still lack a sense of urgency." Sensing the change in atmosphere, the students lowered their heads. afraid of being called out and criticized if they made eye contact with Old Jong. Old Jong tapped the grade reports in his hand. Overall, everyone did quite well on this exam. Several students have made significant progress. I want to commend the following students. I hope everyone can learn from them. He picked up the test papers and started reading out names. Sukik, 612, Guoyat, 655. Sukik and Guoya happily went up to collect their papers. Old Jong continued. Son Jingnian, 686. Whispers filled the classroom. The class rep is so strong. This test was really hard. His score is even higher than last time. Amidst the aberration of his classmates, Song Jingnian went up to collect his test paper. Although he appeared calm on the surface, he glanced at me smugly as he passed by. He even flicked his test paper. Old Jong held up the remaining test papers, his face full of pride. We have two students who scored above 700 this time. The students started whispering. Even the class rep didn't get 700. One of them must be Su Kingen. But who's the other one? Someone suddenly realized something and became excited. They started whispering to the people around them. Old Jong knocked on the table to quiet them down. Then he said, John Haoken, 708. The students started discussing again. Several girls shook their friends' arms excitedly. After confirming that he hadn't misheard, Song Jingnian's face fell. I slowly got up from my seat and went to collect my test paper, glancing at the last one. I smiled at Su Kingen before returning to my seat. Old Jong started reading the last test paper. Su Qing Han ...